Before I get into my rant, I want to mention that the things I'm getting ready to talk about are my opinions about the changes that I see YouTube making. Some of them make me a little bit uncomfortable. That's why I wanted to make this video and talk about it. And I'm sure everything's gonna be fine, but with some of the changes that they're making, it's just making me a little bit uncomfortable because of the direction that we're heading with some of these changes that YouTube is making. Let me explain. So we all know that YouTube removed the ability to link anything from the YouTube short shelf. And what YouTube told us at that moment in time was that it was for the sake of cutting down on the amount of people spamming. Now look, I'm not saying that that might not have been one of the reasons that they took that away. However, when they introduced the option to link to a long form video from Shorts, then it made that whole decision feel a little bit shady because then the same thing could be accomplished. It just required one more click. With that said, I've been doing internet marketing for a really long time, and I understand that when you do add that one more click that it can impact conversions, because then you have the person that has to watch that short, click on that link, go to that next video, watch some of that next video, click on a link in that description. So it's a longer process, which is important to remember for later in this video. But I'm sure that it does drastically cut down on the amount of people that are being taken advantage from the Shorts feed. But that shopping link that they added, I don't know about you, but for me, that felt a little bit shady. But this is old stuff, right? Let's get into the new stuff that I'm really worried about. Just recently, YouTube updated the video watch page on desktop computers, and it makes it more difficult for people to get into our video descriptions. Let me show you. I opened this live stream from the Lo-Fi Everyday channel, and the first thing that I see is the chat. I understand. It's live, and they want to show activity as people come into the chat. I get it. However, in order to get to the description now, you have to close the chat by clicking on the X in the top right corner. First time this happened to me, I thought that they removed the video descriptions entirely. But once you click that, then you have to click on the More option, which you would think would open the description, but it doesn't. Once you click that, YouTube shows the top part of the description. You might want to start making sure important links show up here, by the way. But then you have to click on See More in order to access the full description. And look, I know that this middle page is so that they can feature any remixes that are made on the content that somebody is watching. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe they'll end up changing this in the future to where it might show recommended shorts in videos that don't have any remixes or something. I'm not sure yet. But on YouTube's never-ending quest to drive long-form viewers into YouTube Shorts, this creates an additional step that people have to take in order to get to the descriptions, but we're not done. But I do want to highlight that if you are using the channel leaks feature, that it does show up here. But even with that, if you look at this screenshot from Brioni Face live stream, it doesn't display correctly when the page loads and only really suggests the first link without scrolling. Now, if you go and you test this on a page, you'll see for yourself and you'll see that it's not very intuitive that you need to actually find something to scroll. So technically you can take your mouse and just grab it and move it over, but it's not super clear when you're there. So because of that, if you are using your channel links, make sure that you put the most important link first because that's the one that's going to be prominent in that spot. But anyway, let's move on with my complaints. This process of adding extra steps so that they can showcase shorts, even on videos where they might not even be there, creates extra steps for somebody that would casually go down and look in your video description. Or when you tell people in your video, I got a link down in the description, it makes it harder for them to get there because there's more things in the way that can help them get distracted on their way there. And it's a process to actually get there. And just to be clear, the reason I'm concerned about this is because I've been doing internet marketing for a long time. And one of the things that you learn when you're doing internet marketing is that when you start adding steps that people have to take, it starts making it where less people take those actions because they get distracted or because they're just like, somewhere along the process, they just kind of lose interest in taking whatever action it is, which means that's going to end up hurting conversions for anybody that has sponsored content or anybody that promotes anything as an affiliate, which kind of sucks. And this isn't just live streams. The same exact thing happens to regular video content. The only difference is that when somebody enters the video, they don't have the entire description area covered up by a chat box. But wait, it gets worse. YouTube just released a jump ahead feature. In the blog post, they say, it's now much easier for you to skip ahead to the best parts of the video. Now, when you double tap to skip ahead, you'll see a jump ahead button that will take you right where you want to go. This feature, powered by a combination of AI and viewership data, is now available to all US premium subscribers on Android. And good news for iOS users, it's coming to you in the next few weeks. I want to talk about what's happening here. So as a viewer, this is absolutely fantastic. And we all know that YouTube is designed for the viewers, not for the creators, obviously in this particular case. But this feature is extremely similar to a plugin that I'm not going to name that allows people to skip sponsored spots of videos. Oh yeah, You see where this is going, don't you? So basically, when somebody clicks on that jump ahead option, the way it's explained in their blog post is that it skips them past the part that most people are skipping. Not everybody, but just that most people are skipping through. And then it will land the viewer in the part where most people stopped, apparently, or the place where it thinks is best for the viewer at that moment in time, which, if we think of how that works, it might be a big problem. And it might be a really big problem when it comes to sponsorships on YouTube in the future. Let me explain. Having done a bunch of sponsored content on my channel and having worked with other people that have done sponsored content on their channels, one thing that I can say is that during sponsored segments, some people skip those segments. So in some cases, you'll see, a lot of cases actually, you'll see when the sponsor message starts, then the retention will start to go down in that particular area, and then it'll come back up pretty close to after the sponsor message ends. Now keep in mind, this is some people, not everybody. A lot of people still watch those sponsored messages. So if you have these sponsored messages, and those are typically the most skipped part in a video, then in that particular case, this tells me that this particular feature is going to help people skip past a lot of the sponsored messages in our content. Now, again, from the viewer side, which YouTube is catered for, this is a pretty big win. On the creator side, and us needing to convert in some way for a sponsor, if we do an ad read, it might not be the best thing for us. Now, if you're somebody that does a full dedicated sponsored video about a product or something, then in that case, probably not that big of a deal. But if you're somebody that does ad reads, and what I mean by ad reads is you're one of the creators to where when the video starts and you do your hook or whatever, then you get to a particular part of your video to where you say, oh, and this video is sponsored by, and then you have a little quick blurb about that particular company. I think those types of ads or those types of reads are going to be impacted from this. I hope I'm wrong, but as a long-term play, and I mean really long-term, if you were a company and you had ads at the front of the videos and you had mid-rolls in the videos, in that particular case, might it be in your best interests to have features like this to where you made it possible for people to skip so that they were seeing more of what it is that you wanted them to see, where you got a cut of what was being shown and all that stuff compared to a sponsor read where you don't get anything? I don't know. I don't know if that's how it's working, but I'm just saying all of this stuff feels shady. That's why I'm talking about this, but let's keep going. It's rumored, so I don't know if they're testing this or if it's something that is exactly the way that I'm explaining it, but the way that it seems is that YouTube is going to be showing AI results when people look for specific search terms. With these particular results, basically, let's say that I went to YouTube search and I typed in chocolate cake recipe. In that particular case, if you're a content creator that sells an ebook that has a chocolate cake recipe or a bunch of other recipes in there, and you use your video about chocolate cake recipes in order to sell that, and somebody goes and they type in chocolate cake recipe, well, again, because it's being catered to the viewer, if a really good recipe shows up, an AI generated recipe shows up next to all the search results, then somebody doesn't have to watch your video in order to get the information that they need for that. So again, win for the viewer, but not such a big win for the creators. And again, this is rumored. So I don't know if this is part of the conversational AI thing that they just rolled out, or if they're going to be doing what they do in Google search, which is you type in what it is that you're looking for, and then they show an AI result. And with that AI result, they just highlight like a couple of sources, maybe 2 or 3 sources underneath the actual result, but it makes it to where you don't even have to go and look at those sources because Google just gives you the information that you need. So if you make search-based content and you leverage search-based content to answer very specific questions and maybe products are solutions to those questions, then they might step in front of that as well, which then would also be a loss of sorts to the content creators. Now, of course, the viewers are going to win, but us, this might impact us if they roll this out. Now, if you've been watching my content for any amount of time, you know that when possible, if I complain about something, I also like to give a solution or solutions to the problems that I'm posing. So in this case, since I do have pretty strong opinions about some of these changes that are taking place, I also put together some solutions that we might be able to implement into what it is that we're making now. So as that squeeze gets a little bit tighter over time, that we're still able to navigate ourselves through it. First, if you're somebody that's trying to bring attention to things, either as an affiliate, through sponsors, maybe bringing attention to your own company, then in that particular case, one thing that I recommend as one solution is to actually start burning things into your video by saying the specific things that people need to go to in your video content if possible. Here's what that looks like, and it requires some skill sets, and I've got an easier version of it here coming up in a second too. But as an example, I have a website, nickniman.com, and on that website, I have some plugins built in there for affiliate stuff so I can track everything through that website. So what I I could start saying in my videos when I'm promoting something very specific, then I can say in the videos, go to nickniman.com/whatever that thing is. And then I can set up my website so that it'll send people to the right thing as soon as they type that into their browser. Keep in mind, they got to close YouTube in order to go take that action. However, it might save them from having to click on everything, or at the very least, it gives you one more place where you're giving information to where even if they do go through the description, they also heard you say it and they know where to go in the event that they do get sidetracked or something like that. The next thing you can do, which is a little bit easier, but you got to be really careful with this one because of brand names and things like that. So you might have to get creative in how you're using it, is you can also buy domain names and then you can put redirects behind those domain names. So for example, if I was trying to send somebody to Opus Clip, then I can say, go to tryopusnow.com. And if somebody goes and puts that in their browser, then it would send them directly to Opus Clip. So in that particular scenario, all I had to do is buy the domain, tryopusnow.com. And then there's something called a wildcard redirect that I can set up in my domain account. And then I just add my affiliate link there. And then that way, if I make a short and I mention it, or a TikTok video and I mention it, or if I say it in a video, then in that particular case, somebody can hear that thing that's easy to remember, and then they can go that way. And then you don't have to set up a website or anything like that. It just makes the whole process easier for you. But it does come with a cost because domain names are anywhere from like $5 to $15, depending on what it is that you're getting. If you're going for .coms, some of them can be a lot more expensive. Some of them can be cheaper, but you just need to make sure that you're using something that you can easily remember and send people to, and that it's consistent across your content. And by the way, if you want me to make some videos on how to set this stuff up, I can. Just let me know down in the comments that you want it. And if enough people say that they do, then I'll make some videos about it. And don't worry, it's way easier than it sounds. Another option is if you promote a handful of things. Let's say, like in my case, I have like a nice core group of tools that I promote. So one of the things that I could also do is I could also just create a link tree of sorts. Like I use TubeSpanner already, but it's mainly to interlink all of my social media accounts, not necessarily for people to go there to click on links. So because of that, if you did build one of those, then in that case, it would give you the option to send people there for the core things that you do recommend. However, you still need to say something in your video around a asset that you own, so to speak, either your website or just a URL that you're redirecting in order to get people to that. Or you can use your channel links, but even in that case, people still have to navigate to your channel in order to get to that link, or they'll see it in that area where they're doing the remix shorts that I showed you earlier next to the video content if they end up clicking into that particular area. But the problem with this approach is that over time, let's say that over the next 5 years, you end up changing the different things that you promote. Well, in that case, you're gonna have a link tree that's like this long, and then when people hit that, they're gonna be so overwhelmed with decisions and trying to find the link that might not convert either. So because of that, you just have to be really mindful of what you keep in there. And the long play, in my opinion, is if you can bounce things off of your website, or you can get a custom name for the different things that you promote, then as long as you own those properties, then your content can still drive that revenue forever, as long as people are interacting with that content when you mention those things within the videos. Even if a worst case scenario where YouTube decides like, hey, we're not allowing links anywhere. I don't think that's gonna happen. But if they did, then you would still be okay in that particular situation because you would have an archive of content where those links are burned in. But look, these changes I'm talking about, like these are just my opinions on some of the things that I'm seeing and just things that I'm uncomfortable with in terms of the direction things are going. Like I'm still pro YouTube. I'm still happy to be a content creator. I still believe that there's a gigantic opportunity here on YouTube for anybody that wants to take that opportunity. I still believe that YouTube supports creators and they want us to do well and they want us to make a lot of money from the content that we're publishing. But I do think that they just want maybe a little bit of a cut of some of the stuff that they're not making money on right now. And because of that, in order to get it, there might be some collateral damage along the way if that is a direction that they're heading in. These changes are concerning for me, but as creators, we definitely have to evolve and we have to modify. That's why I gave some solutions in terms of things we can start doing now in order to be able to make sure that things are fine down the road. And even though this video is more of a rant, if you are somebody that is a content creator and you're wanting to learn more about YouTube, I recommend that you click into this right here. It's gonna take you over to my videos page on my YouTube channel where I have tons of content that can help you out on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and click into that now, and I will see you in the next video.